We're joined now by Becker. He's executive director of the Anti-War and Civil Rights Organization, the Answer Coalition. We saw that 1946 imagery, the black and white. They wanted to make this an issue then. Here it is, an issue today. I heard one soundbite today saying the major stakeholders are not truly interested in denuclearization. Nukes are big business. These countries aren't thinking about scaling back. They're advancing these weapons in many cases. How do we turn it around?
Well, sadly, you're right. The 1969 Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, NPT, says the quid pro quo for countries that don't have nuclear weapons is that they won't acquire them, and in return, the countries that do have nuclear weapons will step-by-step incrementally get rid of them. Instead, what we're embarked on now, it started under Obama, it's continuing under Trump, is a modernization of nuclear weapons, another $1 trillion. So we're going away from the NPT goals, not towards it.
And one of the interesting things that came out today, the UN posted this today, more than half of the world's population still lives in countries that either have nuclear weapons or are members of nuclear alliances. Earlier this week, we saw all these people out on the streets here in Washington, D.C., disrupting traffic. They're talking about doing the same thing tomorrow, about climate change. Why is this issue not resonating? Why aren't people out on the street saying that this has got to end?
Yeah, I agree with you. The suggestion of your question, this is an existential threat. It only takes one small nuclear war or a cascading set of events that include nuclear weapons for the species as we know it to no longer exist as we know it, and certainly for society as we know it to no longer be organized the way it's organized. This is very dangerous, and the fact of the matter is, during the Cold War, you had the architecture of arms treaties, the anti-ballistic missile treaty, the intermediate nuclear range treaty, the START treaty, the architecture for an equilibrium so that at least it would be a managed nuclear rivalry. That's off the table now. The U.S. abrogated the ABM. They just ripped up the intermediate nuclear range treaty. There's no negotiations at all for 2021 when the START treaty expires. So we're going into an era of unmanaged nuclear rivalry. How could it be more dangerous?
And on top of that, it seemed like maybe a couple of years ago, maybe Iran's going to reduce, the DPRK is going to reduce. It doesn't seem as that's the direction at all. It seems that they're going in the other direction. So you're talking about, these nuclear powers, but then countries that perhaps may or may not develop nuclear weapons, it appears they're going in that direction.
Well, I think the Iranians are profoundly disappointed. They signed the JCPOA, not just with the United States, but with 5 other countries. The bargain was clear. You allow intrusive weapons inspectors to come into your country to make sure that there's no nuclear weapons. And Iran said, we don't want a nuclear weapon. We will allow this inspection regime to take place. In return, sanctions would be lifted. If Donald Trump rips that up, what options does Iran have? What cards does it have to play except to suggest to the others, look, if you don't come back into the peace regime, in other words, lift the sanctions, we'll start to enrich uranium to levels that were prohibited by the JCPOA. So Iran is in a corner. It doesn't have to be this way.
And the interesting thing is, we're talking about this issue, and yet in this city, it seems like and this is a crucial issue, the UN talking about it today, in this city, it's going to be consumed with tweets and basically an impeachment inquiry. This issue goes by the wayside.
Well, I think the impeachment inquiry, by and large, will be a debacle. It'll be a debacle for the Democratic Party. It'll be a debacle for American governance. The American people themselves are demanding substantial changes. They want to have a government that takes care of medical care, or at least proposes a system that helps people meet their needs. They want to have infrastructure. They don't want war. They don't want more nuclear weapons. And again, we're going to be preoccupied with this partisan wrangling here in Washington, D.C. I think it's going to lead to a profound disillusionment. Actually, many Americans are saying, look, this is not a real democracy. We need a democracy that says, if it's of, by, and for the people, that we address these profound fundamental issues. Right now, the politicians on both sides of the aisle seem to be preoccupied with something else.
Becker, thanks so much for coming in.
My pleasure.